They are indeed. They're almost done now. It's really quietened down quite a lot since obviously the initial part of it. There's two females still fighting a little bit over the last scraps, and basically it's down to the point where they're just licking the bones now. And it's interesting to watch lions when they feed. Initially it's kind of big chunks of flesh that they pull off, and then as it gets to this point, then they start to use those tongues with those little hooks on them, and they basically just strip the bones of all the meat, and there'll be very, very, very little left of this for hyenas or vultures or anything like that. In fact, I doubt vultures will even come to this. It wouldn't be enough to interest them. What might happen is the bateliers might come here. It's very close to the batelier nest, and so they might come and land and scrounge around a little bit, but there'll be very little left, bar maybe a skull. The skull of an adult male warthog is quite large, and is quite thick, and so I doubt that that's going to get eaten too much. It'll get licked and kind of pulled apart a little bit, but the skull itself will probably be fairly intact, and it will be interesting to come here tonight or tomorrow, depending on where these lions move. I'm almost sure these lions are going to walk to Twin Dams at some point during either today or during the day or this evening, and then it'll be interesting to come and see just the size of that warthog and give you a kind of idea of just how big it is and the tusks and things like that. But it was a substantial male, that's for sure. Bulky individual, and like I say, put up as valiant an effort as possible, which is all you can really ask for. Yeah, like I say, these things always are difficult for me. I don't know why. I don't like watching animals being killed. It's not the nicest thing. As a guide, we get a lot of people that it's the first thing they ask. When was the last time you saw a kill? Or when can we see a kill? Or I want to see a kill. And to be honest with you, while it is exciting and it is incredible, like I say, to watch the power of predators in action, just watching an animal's life ending is for me quite sad sometimes. It's the same as, in this situation, some people would celebrate the fact that we watched a warthog get killed, and it's great that the lions got food and that the warthog was taken and all those kinds of things. But had that been a leopard, would our response to it have been the same? Which is an interesting way to look at things, and I think you've got to, when you're out here, and you've got to realize that these things that take place, I think there should be equal value placed on everything. And I know that's a difficult thing for us as humans, because a warthog is not as charismatic or evokes as much emotion as a big cat, but at the end of the day, it should have every right to be celebrated and to be looked at as any other of the creatures out here. And like I say, when something difficult happens to them, I think there should be that same sadness in some respects. Victoria, yep, it's a shock to a lot of people. This one has actually lasted fairly long because the boys are not here. If the boys were here, it would have been even worse. I've seen an impala male that was stolen from a leopard. The leopard brought it down and hadn't even eaten it, and the Styx Pride came running in and they grabbed it. And at the time, I can't remember how many there were, but I think it was about 7 or 8 of them. And that impala carcass I think it lasted something like 3.5 minutes or something close to that, and it was just the horns that were left. So when they get going, they are quite ferocious at feeding. I mean, wild dogs catch a bad rep because of the way that they feed, but you can see lions feed exactly the same way, depending on the size of the animal. So while that warthog was alive, they were eating just like wild dogs would do, and just with as much ferocity as wild dogs do. So I always feel bad for dogs. So they get this unnecessary tag to them that they are cruel and they are animals that kill other animals by ripping them apart, and it's disgusting. But like I say to you, lions are no different. They do the exact same thing. The good thing, though, for the animal that gets killed is that it goes into a state of shock pretty quickly. And from what people that are in the know tell me, is that as they go into that state of shock, generally the pain element is actually not even there, and they even though they're being eaten alive, they've kind of sort of gone past that already, and it's not as bad as it looks, but it's still difficult to watch, that's for sure. I see one or two lionesses getting up already. I wonder if they're not going to start making their way towards Twin Dams. They're going to want water after all of this commotion. And even though they got blood off the warthog itself, there will still be a situation where they'll want to go and just top up with some fresh water. And they might actually not even use Twin Dams. They might just go into the Mulawati. There's so many nice elephant holes that have been dug that are seeping water that is cleaner than what Twin Dams would be, that they might head there. But given that it's quite a number of lions, they often, when they walk to water, they line up and everyone tries to find a place to drink, and so maybe they'll head towards the dam rather than the drainage line. But either way, I suspect that they'll still be here this afternoon, which will be good for David. Poor David has had a tough time of it, which I can sympathize with, because we've also had a bit of a tough run. But as we've said all along this week, is that a bit of patience, a bit of perseverance, and eventually the rub of the green will break your way, and you start to see things again. And so I'm pretty sure Dave is in for a good sighting soon. I know he wants to see a leopard really badly as well, so I'm hoping that one will pop out for him. It's always one of those things when we're out here, is that I think you've got to revel in your peers' success rather than your own in a lot of respects. We often sit and talk about things here, and we're a bunch of guides that are quite close. It's probably the closest I've been to my fellow guides than in most lodges. And I think the part of that is that we all enjoy each other finding and seeing cool things. There's no competition really, and there's very seldom is there really arguments that take place amongst us. And I think that's the thing, is that I think you actually get rewarded for having those kind of outlooks rather than trying to just compete with each other and outdo each other. That's for sure. So, well, that's at least how I feel about it. Maybe others don't, but I think we're all in this together, and we're all trying to achieve the same objective at the end of the day. So it's nice to, like I say, revel in other people's success, and I do hope that Dave gets some success. And Rowan actually too, because Rowan had a tough day the other day when he was out. So Rowan at Ingala, would be nice for him to get what he's looking for this afternoon as well. Maybe both of them will find their lilac breasted roller today. It's a shame that Bird gave them a run around the other day. It's amazing how that happens when you're looking for something common and it's just not there. Adele, exactly. There we go. And that applies to this entire sighting. Success as a whole and not a singularity. There's a lot of sort of double entendres in that particular sentence, because at the end of the day, we've got a lioness, or a lion pride, that as a whole has managed to overcome a singular animal in the form of the warthog. The warthog has been killed because ultimately it wasn't part of a grouping. If it was part of a grouping, maybe it was the one that would get away. And that then also applies to us as a community. And like I said, it's not just us as guides, it's the Final Control cameramen, guides, all of you watching. As a unit, we can make this move forward rather than trying to do it all on our own as individuals. So yeah, it's a good thing. See, we can learn lots of lessons from nature. I think as humans, we sometimes think we're cleverer than what we really are, and we sometimes don't watch nature or see nature and actually learn from it, and we don't take in that there's a lot of things that happens in nature on a day-to-day basis that if we as humans stuck to, we would probably be better off than what we are at the moment. Alright, we're going to sit here with these guys. We're going to enjoy just the last bit of it. I'm still surprised a single hyena hasn't arrived. But while we enjoy this, let's send you across to David, who's in the company of a large grey animal.